What's up, my resilient moneymakers? Welcome back to another episode of the Do.Different.Better Show, the podcast where we talk about real life money moves that help you stay in control of your financial future. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and today we're tackling a topic that too many of us will face at some point: job loss. If you've ever been laid off, fired, or you're thinking about leaving your job without a financial plan, this episode is for you. Now, let's keep it real. Losing a job can feel like getting the wind kicked out of you. Whether you saw it coming or it hit you like a surprise storm, one thing is clear: you need a plan and you need it fast. So, today we're diving into what to do immediately after losing a job, how to assess your financial situation, prioritize expenses, and keep yourself afloat while finding your next move. So stick with me for this full episode because in the next segment, we'll talk about income replacement, we'll talk about side hustles, gig work, and networking, and how you can leverage those for new opportunities. And then we're going to wrap up the show by diving into long-term strategies that can ensure you're never caught off guard financially again. Sound good? Okay, let's get into it. So, first and foremost, what we need to do is, after losing your job, you've got to take a financial inventory. And no, I'm not talking about spiraling into anxiety and staring at your empty checking account. I mean clear, numbers based, objective assessment of where you stand financially. Here's the thing: right now, we are seeing record number layoffs and people just being a victim because maybe they had government contracts and their department is on hold and they just don't know if they're getting paid. I was on a conference call the other day with a group of ladies, and one of their daughters is a researcher and has no idea when her work is going to resume again and is not collecting a paycheck. So this can happen for a variety of reasons, many of them outside of your control. But here's what you need to do today. And yes, today, grab a notepad or a spreadsheet. Y'all know I love a spreadsheet. Or you can use a budgeting app like YNAB, You Need a Budget, or some other apps that are out there to track your current money situation. Ask yourself three important questions. How much do I have in my checking and savings accounts right now? If you don't already have a cash cushion, now's the time to strategize every dollar you have left. What are my must pay expenses over the next 3 months? Rent, mortgage, groceries, utilities. What bills must be paid no matter what? Next, do I have an emergency fund, investments, or assets that I can access? Maybe it's bonds that your grandparents did. Or if you've got an emergency fund, now is the time to consider how much of it you're going to need and how long it will last. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have $3,500 in checking and $2,000 in savings. Your rent is $1,500 a month. Add in your basic bills like groceries, insurance, and utilities, and let's say you need about $2,500 per month just to keep the lights on. That means your total cash of $5,500 can float you for a little over 2 months. This is what I call your financial runway, the amount of time you can survive on what you currently have. Knowing your runway is crucial because it tells you exactly how much time you have to get new income stream flowing. Step two, cut non-essential spending immediately. Once you know your financial runway, your next move is to cut out non-essential spending. And listen, I know this part stings, but trust me, temporary sacrifice leads to long-term sustainability. Here's a simple rule of thumb. If it's not keeping a roof over your head, food on the table, or essential bills to be paid, it's a luxury and luxuries can wait. Let's break it down. Here are the first expenses to slash when your income stops. One, streaming subscriptions. Yes, this means Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. Pick one if you need to have an escape, but cut the rest. Cable even. Number two, dining out. Those lattes can run up really quickly. Finally, gym memberships and personal trainers. YouTube workouts are free. Peloton has a free version, and there are lots of apps in your app store to keep you fit. Next, impulse online shopping and games. Delete shopping apps off of your phone today. Between impulse buys and microcharges from games, they can drain your bank account fast like a thief in the night. Now, some of y'all might be thinking, but Elaine, do I really need to cut out my weekly sushi night? Let me ask you this. Is your sushi paying your rent? No. Then it can wait. What we're doing here is called survival budgeting. You're switching from your normal spending to bare bones mode until you get back on your feet. Think of it as motivation. Then step three is securing immediate financial assistance. Now that you've cut your spending, let's talk about securing financial assistance. If you just lost your job, do not wait. Don't walk, run, apply for unemployment benefits immediately. This process can take up to weeks, and the sooner you apply, the sooner you can start receiving assistance. I remember the days you used to have to go to the unemployment office. Now, most of it's digital, right? What you can do is you can visit your state's unemployment office website to file a claim. Have your details ready, your last employer, the reason why you have lost your job, and your salary history. Expect to submit weekly reports. We're saying that you are actively looking for employment. Unemployment benefits can replace 40 to 60% of your previous income, depending on the state that you live in, but it's not meant to be a full paycheck. It's there to keep you from drowning while you find a new source of income, whether it's a business or another job. If you need even more financial relief, consider these additional steps. Negotiate with creditors. Call your credit card company, ask for temporary payment reduction or deferment. If you've got student loans, request a student loan forbearance, and that's the language, student loan forbearance. If you have a federal student loan, look into temporary forbearance or income-driven repayment plans. That's the name, income-driven repayment plans. There's also local assistance programs. Many cities have food banks, rental assistance, or utility relief programs. Listen, there's zero shame in asking for help if you need it. And you're not alone, and you don't have to suffer in silence. Use these resources. They exist for situations just like this. And you are brilliant, so this is temporary. I know you, and I know this is just going to be a blip for you. So I really want you to think about removing any shame, any taboo about any of these topics. We've all need assistance, myself included. There's been multiple times in my life where I was unexpectedly unemployed and I've had to use financial assistance. I know that there is a lot of taboo around some of these topics, but I really think that it's important for you to take care of yourself. That's what it's here. And quite frankly, you pay into the system. All that money that you've been making while you were working has paid into the system to help support you when things are not going well. So take the support that you need so that you can actually take care of you and your family. And just know you're not the only one. People are going through this, especially in this moment. So many people are going through this. At the beginning of the year, we heard about multiple Fortune 500 companies laying off 5 to 10% of their staff. Joann's Fabric is closing 500 stores across the nation. That's a lot of people who are going to be and are out of work. So please, 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 do not feel bad that you need to call on help. Everybody needs a helping hand every once in a while. And so this time it just happens to be you. So just think of it as your fairy godmother sending out a flag to help you with the things you need. But you've got to get on top of it right away. Go and fill out these forms. Be timely in responding to emails or phone calls. A lot of these organizations, while you might put your application online, they are going to follow up with a phone call. They actually want to make sure that it's a real person, and they do some other verification that they don't want to do digitally for your own safety and security. So be mindful of answering your phone. I know we live in the day where people don't like to answer their phone. They let everything go to voicemail. But if you do that, that could be the difference between getting assistance or getting your unemployment sooner rather than later. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and start to wrap up here for this particular segment. We've covered a lot in this segment, so now let me give you a recap. So, step one, if you find that you've lost your job, take financial inventory. Know exactly how much you have and what is your financial runway. Step two, cut non essential spending. Go into survival mode and cut all of your unnecessary expenses. And step three, secure financial assistance. That could mean applying for unemployment and reaching out for other forms of support. If you just go to Google and say financial assistance, rental assistance, housing assistance, if you have a mortgage, you will usually, and put in your state, that usually will be one of the top links that comes up that will get you that information. But make sure you go and apply for these benefits as soon as possible, right away. Now, coming up in the next segment, we're going to be talking about income replacement strategies, how to make money fast through gig work, freelancing, and leveraging your network, which is highly underutilized. You don't want to miss this because this is where we move from survival mode into comeback mode. So stay with me. If this episode is hitting home for you or somebody you know, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the Do.Different.Better Show. And you can watch the show on YouTube at Do.Different.Better so that you never miss an episode that helps you level up your money game. I'll see you after the break. What's up, my comeback kings and queens? Welcome back to the Do Different Better Show, where we turn your setbacks into setups for success. If you're just tuning in, we're breaking down the financial steps to take after losing a job. And in the first segment, we covered the first three critical steps, which is one, taking financial inventory, two, cutting your expenses, and three, securing financial assistance. Now we're moving into the action packed part, how to make money fast. Because let's be real, you need an income and you need it now. But here's the key, we're not just talking about quick gigs, we're setting you up with strategies that could grow into long term money moves. This is your comeback blueprint to replace the lost paycheck and maybe even make more than you did at your old job. So I want you to grab a notebook, take some notes, and let's get into it. First up, let's talk about quick money moves. Things you can do immediately to bring in some extra cash while looking for long-term work. So, number one, selling unused items. I like to call this decluttering for cash. Now, you probably have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars sitting in your house. Electronics, designer clothes, collectibles, furniture. If you're not using it, sell it, especially if you haven't used it or looked at it or thought about it in the last 6 months. So there's lots of places you can sell fast. There's Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Nextdoor, OfferUp. Many of these are really confined to local sales where no shipping is required. Then there's eBay and Poshmark where you can do designer clothes, sneakers, collectibles. There's also Declutter for tech things like old iPhones, game consoles, and laptops. I had a friend who was laid off and needed fast cash. She made over $800 in just a week by selling stuff she wasn't even using. So look around your house and turn your clutter into cash. So next up is gigs or side hustle. So let's talk about gig work because when the paycheck stops, the side hustle starts. So the first is driving and delivery. And that probably is an obvious choice. So there's Uber and Lyft, and there's some other ones that are coming up there that are up and coming that might be specific to your particular area or region. If it's really great if you own a reliable car and have flexible hours. Then there's DoorDash, Uber Eats, Instacart. This is another quick way to make money delivering food and groceries. And then there's freelancing. Do you have a specific talent? Tell the story. I'm going to tell you one of the story when I first got laid off, and what I ended up doing was calling everybody I knew so I could get some consulting work. I was just desperate. I was on my last 2 weeks of unemployment, and finding a job was just not happening. So I literally just called every single person that I knew, that I went to college with, and said, hey, I'm available to do some marketing consulting because that's what I went to school for and that's what people knew me for. And within a very short amount of time, I mean, a couple of weeks, I had one of my college buddies call me and say, hey, she worked at a marketing agency. She's like, I need some extra work on a project that I'm working on. Would you be able to come on board? I was like, absolutely, yes. Now, did it solve my problem permanently? No, but I got work, which then led to other work, which then led to other work, right? So if you have a talent like writing or graphic design or social media management, post your services on accounts like Fiverr, Upwork, and Freelancer. And then there's also virtually assisting. Maybe you are not necessarily have a specific talent, but you're really good at organizing. You're really good at spreadsheets. You're really good at synthesizing information. Virtual assisting is really great. Many entrepreneurs and small businesses need help with admin work, right? Especially if you're thinking about launching your own business or you have another kind of project that you want to get off the ground and you want to do something that maybe doesn't require a lot of thinking, big brain power. Doing some of these kinds of jobs, like being a virtual assistant, is really great and helps with that, right? Then there's things like remote jobs and micro tasks. So Amazon Mechanical, Turk, and Clickworker, you can get paid for completing small online tasks. Then there are places like airlines and shipping companies. They need online customer service representative. Once again, these are things that may not take your big brain thinking. They might take some problem solving skills, but not big brain thinking. So if you've got something else that you're working on or you're trying to put together, you've got in the works, these are great jobs that you can do until that thing that you want to launch starts bringing in some dollars for you. Then there's user testing. This is where you can earn money by testing websites and apps. Listen, these gigs may not replace your old salary overnight, but they keep cash flowing while you build towards something bigger. I remember when I moved to Las Vegas, I worked at a retail store full time until I found my professional job. But then I stayed on part time, working 3 nights a week and Sundays because it was a great way for me to make extra money for my saving and my son's extracurricular activities. And that brings me to leveraging your skills for high paying work. Okay. Now that we have covered quick cash strategies, let's talk about leveraging your skills to increase your income without taking another 9 to 5 job immediately. This requires you to monetize your expertise. What do you know that others will pay for? Well, here's a short list. Tutoring and coaching. There are sites like Wisant and Varsity. Tutors can connect you with students to help them with a particular subject. Teach an online course. There are platforms like Udemy or Teachable or Kajabi. They let you create passive income from your particular knowledge base, particularly if you've created some unique tools. I remember the last job that I worked in, I did an event, a large national event every year. It was a conference. And the tool that I built as a result of managing that conference was a tool that I took with me. And I've had so many people who I've showed this tool to say, you really should sell this. And I'm like, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to eventually get to it. But you may have built something to help leverage you to work efficiently in your last job that probably other people who do a similar job could use as well. And so you could teach people to use this tool and they can buy this tool from you as a download. And that is a good way to make passive income, right? Also think about consulting. I shared with you that was my experience. Businesses will pay for your expert advice in marketing or finance or project management and more. If you've ever worked in corporate America, you've already got marketable skills, so don't waste them. I know people making $10,000 plus per month on being consultants after being laid off. I was one of them. Your knowledge is valuable, so monetize it. Next, contract or temp work. If you want steady pay but aren't ready for a full-time job, maybe you're thinking of a career change and you haven't quite figured out like what that exactly is going to be, consider contract or temp work. Companies hire temporary employees for project-based work or to cover short-term gaps. Maybe like there's somebody's on family leave or maternity leave or something like that. There are places that you can go specifically for these kinds of things. There's companies like Robert Half or Kelly Services. There's both. There's even some that are specific. So there's temporary agencies that have to do with accounting. There are temporary agencies that have to do with manual labor. There are temporary agencies that have particular construction skills. There's a temporary agency for almost every kind of service that you can think of or talent that you can think of. But all of them specialize in temporary replacement. They even have some that have the option of bringing you on full time if that's something that you're interested in. Now, there's other ones like Upwork, TopTal, or Catalent that can also help you find some high-paying consulting gigs for finance, IT, and strategy experts. I've gone on to Upwork. I've leveraged them to be able to edit large reports that I need written, whether that's they are drafting them and copywriting them, or we've drafted them and I need somebody to come through and make sure that there's continuity, fact check everything that we've done. There are people who are sitting at home, moms that are sitting at home that are waiting to do this kind of work, and they're really good at it, right? Now, what's great about some of these platforms, there are ratings, so you can kind of see how many jobs they've done. There are people at different rate scales that you can find something within in your budget, but also you can see how many clients that they service. So if you obviously somebody who's probably just starting out might have a lower price, but you don't necessarily have traction. But if it's something that's super, super important, they might want to have somebody of a higher skill and willing to pay a little bit more per hour or by project. There's also We Work Remotely and Remote.co. These are websites for flexible remote freelance gig. This is a solid stepping stone while you're trying to figure out your next move. You might even land a full-time role through a contract job. Many companies hire full-time from their temp pool. Step 3, networking to find your next big opportunity. Okay, we've talked about fast cash, gig work, and leveraging your skills. And now let's talk about the most powerful tool for getting a job or growing a business, your network. There's a thing that says your network is your net worth, and I can't tell you how true that is. But the first thing you got to do is tap into your network. So here's what I want you to do. Make a list of 10 to 20 people who could help you find work or offer a contract job or connect you with somebody in the industry that you're looking to be in or that you just came out of. Reach out to them via email and or LinkedIn. I probably do both because you never know what's the best way to reach people. And or give them a quick call and let them know you're looking for work or consulting gigs or referrals, right? I just told you the story of that's how I got my first consulting gig almost 30 years ago. And here's an example message. I'm going to give you a script. Hey, so-and-so, hope you're doing well. I'm currently exploring some new opportunities in whatever your industry or skill is. If you hear of any roles or freelance gigs or companies hiring, I'd love to connect. I promise you, most opportunities come from personal connections, not from job boards. So start reaching out today. Number 2, use LinkedIn to your advantage. The first thing you got to do is you probably need to update your LinkedIn profile with your latest experience. Most people have not even updated their last job on their LinkedIn. I always say, keep your LinkedIn current. I don't care how many times you switch jobs, make sure your LinkedIn is current, but also have the information on there that's relevant for the role that you're looking for. So I remember when I was first started working out, I spent 4 or 5 years working at Nordstrom. That experience, while valuable, did not necessarily make sense for the marketing consulting jobs that I was going for, right? However, if I was looking at doing some project management work, I thought it was a very relevant experience because I had to manage multiple customers at the same time. I had my own book that I had, a book of business that I had to maintain. I was a top selling salesperson 3 years in a row. So those are kinds of skills that translated into that job. So really thinking about what's the relevant experience for the opportunity that I'm looking for and making sure that whatever is on LinkedIn aligns with that. If there are gaps in your employment because of that, because you're trying to craft your LinkedIn profile to be something very specific that's going to lend to a specific industry or job, then you can deal with that when you get the interview but be prepared to explain that gap. Right? But make sure you're updating your LinkedIn with your latest experience, skills, certifications, education. Post that you're available for a position. Ask for evergreen recommendations, letters, and posts on LinkedIn from people you've worked with or you've worked alongside in past organizations. Also, join industry groups and engage with potential employers. So, industry groups can be either meetups, it could be online communities, things like that, in person convenings, whether they be, hey, this is a networking thing, pop up, just pop up and go. You never know. But people are more likely to want to deal with a known entity. So even if they just met you once and they maybe didn't have a long conversation, when they see your resume come through, they're gonna be like, oh, I think I met them. They seem like a nice person. I might give them additional consideration because they just have a face with the name. There's so many hidden jobs that never get posted publicly. Get active on LinkedIn, connect with decision makers, and start building relationships that lead to opportunities. Okay? So let's recap what we've covered today. Step one, let's get you some quick cash strategies, and that is selling your unused items and using gig economy work and to pick up some side hustles. Step two, leveraging your skills for high paying work like consulting, freelancing, tutoring, and contract jobs. Okay. And step three, network your way to new opportunities. Tap into your network and use LinkedIn effectively. So I want you to like reach out to if you've got a partner, if you've got a friend group. My son is part of a Jeep club. And no matter what it is, if you're part of a stitch group, if you're part of a cross stitch group, if you're a part of a CrossFit group, let them know you're looking for work, you're looking for opportunities. I play tennis. I had a friend of mine, he's actually retiring, but he wants to be able to stay busy. He's an accountant. I said, hey, do you know how many nonprofits are looking for a fractional accountant or bookkeeper or controller? And I introduced him to like 5 or 6 nonprofit executive directors that I knew. So now he's got his pick of the litter, and they are now being helped by this person who it's a win-win situation. He's only looking for some extra work because he doesn't want to go into full retirement mode. They don't want somebody full time, so they're getting somebody who's highly qualified, highly skilled, who came from corporate America that they know can be really, really helpful in making sure that their financials are together. So now that we've covered all, excuse me, now that we've covered all that, in the next segment, we're going to be talking about long-term financial security. We're going to be talking about how to build an emergency fund, set up multiple streams of income, and protect yourself from future job loss. This is where you future-proof your money, so you're not going to want to miss it. If you're loving this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with somebody who really needs a game plan right now. Maybe they've been unemployed for a while, but that's okay. You've got this, they've got this. And you know what? I'm going to see you after the break. All right, my resilient wealth builders, welcome back to the Do Different Better Show, where we turn financial curveballs into comeback stories. If you've been rocking with me for the last 2 segments, you already know we've covered a lot on how to assess your financial situation, cut unnecessary expenses, and get cash flowing fast through side gigs, contract work, and leveraging your skills. But listen, we're not just about survival here. You know me, okay? We've been through this for a while. It's time to build a financial fortress so that if you ever lose your job again, it's only a small bump in the road, not a full down financial meltdown crisis. So, in this segment, we're going to be diving into long-term security moves, building an emergency fund, creating multiple income streams, and setting up safeguards that keep your money tight no matter what's happening in the economy. This is where we make sure money works for you and not the other way around. All right. So we're going to start with step one, rebuilding and strengthening your emergency fund. So let's start with your financial foundation. That's your emergency fund. Now, I know what you're thinking, Elaine, how am I supposed to save when I just lost my job? Listen, I get it. But even putting aside a small amount can protect you from going deeper into debt later. I think it was on episode 1, I shared with you how I started. I literally started with saving $10 a week. $10 a week. Once again, if you cut out some of those unnecessary expenses, that's going to get you a long way, right? You're going to have that extra money to either make sure that you can pay your bills or you could start rebuilding your emergency fund knowing that you're going to be dipping into it, right? But the first thing that we got to do is we've got to set a realistic emergency fund goal. The traditional advice says 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but let's be real, not everyone can do that overnight, right? So instead, what I like you to do is focus on the bare minimum survival number, right? We talked about in the first segment rent, food, utilities, insurance, and transportation. If full time employment is uncertain, aim for at least 6 months of expenses, right? So I want you to start off by with this action step. Start by setting a micro goal. Aim first for $500, then $1,000, and then just keep building from there. And here's really the big trick: automate. Automate, automate, automate. Like I said, even if it's just $10 a week in a high yield savings account, that money adds up. Let me tell you something. I have a funny story. So, and I think I've shared this story on the show before. But when I bought my car, not the current one, but the car before, I went through a credit union. And if you are getting any kind of financing through a credit union, more than likely they're going to require that you open up a savings account. They usually only require that savings account to be like somewhere between $5 and $50. This particular credit union was they required me to do $5. So I put in $5. I think that was 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. I have not added any money to this account, and it was only $5. That account now has $150 in it. Now, $150 is not a lot, but it is a lot knowing that I started from $5 and I haven't put any money into it. All of that $145 is all interest that I've earned. I didn't do anything for that money. So this is why it's really valuable to let money sit earning interest, right? It's money that's working for you without you having to do anything. So just imagine if I had put $5 in every week into that account, what would that turn out to be? Now, obviously, that's a hard calculation because the interest rates go up and down. But once again, the fact that I put in $5 7 years ago into account, I set it and forget it, and now there's $150. If for some reason I needed $150, I know I've got it, right? So this is the key, and this is the habit that you want to start building. Even when your money is tight, you want to even batten down even further, right? So number 2, what are the best places to store your emergency fund? And that is in a high yield savings account. There's some great ones that are online accounts like Ally. There's Marcus by Goldman Sachs. There's lots of options on Betterment. If you go to the Betterment platform, there's a number of online banking financial institutions that are offering 4.3, 4.5. Even at one point, it was 4.7% for interest-bearing accounts, high yield savings accounts on their platform. You can even with many online HR systems, like if you're on Gusto or if you're on Bench, and if your company manages their system, you can have part of your paycheck go directly to those accounts. And what I love about online banks that don't have a physical building, you're far less likely to go and take the money out because it may be a little bit more difficult process than just going to the ATM and taking out money. So that's another reason why if you're really trying to save and you're really trying to get some self-control around your impulse spending, using an online bank that you can't just drive up to or go to the ATM and take money out is really great. So when you open these accounts, make sure you don't ask for a debit card. Say, I do not want the debit card. Once again, this is something where you're sending money to, not trying to take money out unless you have an emergency. By making it a little bit more difficult to access that money, it's going to set you up for success for longer term savings that then can be used later for something else, like buying your home or and making some other investment. But the thing about it, at the end of the day, your money grows faster with a higher interest rate. And many of those are being offered by these online financial institutions. Next is money market accounts, similar to savings, but with a little bit more flexibility. There's also cash management accounts. Once again, Betterment offers these, Fidelity offers these. These are great for combining savings and investments all in one place. Avoid keeping your emergency fund in stocks and crypto. This money that you need for your emergency fund needs to be safe and accessible, not at risk in the market. Okay. Step two, creating multiple streams of income. Okay. We've talked about securing the short term. Now let's talk about the long term money moves. How to never depend on a single paycheck again. Because if this job loss has taught you anything, it should be that multiple income streams are a necessity, not a luxury. So, first, let's talk about passive and semi passive income options. This is what I like to call bail box money, money that comes in the mail without you having to do anything, right? That you're making money while you're sleeping. So, and I don't mean these get rich quick scams that are out here. You see a lot of them on Instagram. I mean real, legit wealth building plays. So, here's the first one: dividend stocks and ETFs. And I have a whole show on that, right? These are interests that are paying interest in the dividend. They are paying stocks, companies that pay you just for holding their shares, right? There are places that you can go. There's like Vanguard Dividend Growth Fund, which is VDIGX is their moniker, or SPDR S&P Dividend ETF or SDY. These are great for steady payouts. Then there's also real estate without buying property and real estate investment trusts or REITs. I just did a whole show on this like 2 episodes ago. You can invest in real estate without even becoming a landlord. So look at VNQ or Fundrise. Then there's house hacking, right? If you rent, consider subletting a room or getting a roommate to cut costs and increase savings, even temporarily. There are people who are traveling internationally. My son is studying to be a nurse, and he plans to be a traveling nurse, so he doesn't necessarily need a place all the time. As he becomes a successful traveling nurse, he might have a 6 month assignment, a 3 month assignment. So it doesn't pay for him to get an apartment and put down a down payment and buy furniture. It actually pays to have a short term rental. So there are people like international students that are looking for these kinds of opportunities, people who might be visiting for longer than a couple of weeks. They want to stay for a couple of months. But once again, getting an apartment is not necessarily an option. So now there are definitely safety concerns that you want to make sure, or safety measures you want to take by vetting people. There are some great digital background check that are relatively inexpensive that you can purchase. But once again, you can have an income by you could have income coming to your account every month while you're job hunting by just being able to rent out some or part of your house. Or maybe you have an empty garage. You could rent out the garage. You know how many people who are looking just for garage space? Public storage units are expensive nowadays. I know the last time we were looking at one for a small one, it was like $400 a month. Then that's depending on what state you're in. I hear they're even more expensive on the coast, right? So if you've got an empty garage, put it out on Craigslist. But once again, have a contract. Have a contract ready that talks about how you can dispose if they are not making their payments on time. Once again, if they're paying you, have them pay you automatically and have it linked to that high yield savings account so that you are going to be building that interest while you are sleeping. Number two, turning a side hustle into a business. Now, this is for my entrepreneurial listeners. This might be your sign to turn that side hustle into a main hustle. Maybe you make pies over the holidays and everybody loves your pies. Maybe you start a pie making business. Maybe you have a jewelry making business. You love to make jewelry. I love to make scarves and I love to make baby blankets. I don't know if it's something I want to do as a side hustle, But if I were to lose my employment, it might be something that I'd be much more open to because it's something I can do. It's something I love doing. I can do them relatively fast. I can make them custom, and I could probably demand a pretty penny for them, right? The whole idea is to start to turn your action steps into a legit business. So, one, the first thing is register the business, set up an LLC or sole proprietorship or corporation. Check with your state's business websites. Usually, the Department of Revenue is where you want to go to find out where and how much it costs to file. There's usually a fee, but once again, you should be thinking about I will get that money back. It could be anywhere from $75 to $300, depending on the state that you're in. Then, what you want to do is you want to open up a business bank account. Separate your personal expenses from your financial expenses. Then, you want to set up automated invoicing. There's some great platforms like PayPal or Wave or QuickBooks to ensure that clients pay on time. Honeybook is another one, particularly if you're going to be doing services, right? Even if you don't return to a full-time job, having a business on the side keeps you financially independent and prevents you from ever being fully reliant on one paycheck ever again. Number three, we're going to talk about protecting your financial future. Okay. So now that we've covered making fast money, we've talked about rebuilding your emergency fund and setting up multiple income streams. Now let's talk about financial protection, okay? Because real worth isn't just about making money, it's about keeping it. So, starting at the top, making some smart insurance moves. Unemployment insurance, right, is great. Even if you don't qualify initially, keep checking. Check again after a few months. Some states allow for extensions, right? Or they'll say, hey, the state is seeing a large number of people who are coming out from a sector. They might have some one-time opt-ins to get unemployment that you may not have previously qualified for. Number two, health insurance options. Losing a job means losing benefits, but you still have options like your COBRA. That is keeping your old employer's plan. It's expensive, but temporary. There's also marketplace plans like healthcare.gov, where you can get subsidized insurance based on your income, right? This is also known as the Affordable Health Care Act. It's also known as Obamacare, right? Freelancers Union or Medical Share, these are affordable healthcare for self-employed folks. There might be even an organization within your state that also specifically offers benefits or membership benefits to self-employed people or freelancers or contractors. So check that out. Once again, it's a Google search. But don't let medical debt ruin your financial comeback. I want you to stay covered. So next, protecting your credit score. When money is tight, it's easy to ignore credit card bills, but a bad credit score will haunt you for years. So let's keep your credit score really, really strong. So here are some tips. Make at least the minimum payments. Do not let your accounts go into default. If you can, request a hardship extension. Call your lenders, whether it's a bank or the credit card, and ask for some temporary relief. Use a zero balance transfer. There's usually a cost associated with this, but you might get 6 months of zero interest free when you transfer that debt. So do the math. Once again, this is where a spreadsheet comes really in handy. You can say, hey, if I pay, maybe let's say based on the amount that I have, it's going to cost me $150. But if I were to pay 30% interest for the next 6 months, it would be 3 times that. Well, the $150 for you to have a 6-month reprieve is a lot more affordable, right? But transfer your debt to lower interest credit cards or lower interest options if you can. Your credit score is a financial leverage, so protect it at all costs. So here are some final takeaways and an action plan. So let's recap today's comeback plan. First, rebuild your emergency fund. Start small, automate savings, and store it wisely. 2, create multiple streams of income, side hustles, freelancing, investing, and real estate. Number 3, protect your future. keep your health insurance, maintain your credit, and explore new job options. So, here, I hope that this has been really helpful. I know many people at this moment in time are experiencing um, layoffs, they're experiencing firings, they're experiencing job insecurity, once again due to circumstances beyond their control and have nothing to do with them personally or has nothing to do with their personal political views. And so I'm hoping that you really take away from this episode of step out of fear, step out of any shame that you have, and take this as an opportunity to strengthen yourself, not only within but outside, and just be able to like center yourself and focus on there are things that I can do. This situation is not out of my control, because that's the part that starts to can feel like a downward spiral. You just feel like you don't have control, but you do. You have things that you can do. While you cannot control why you're in the circumstances you are, you can control how you manage it and how you get yourself to the other side. And that is my wish for you. So here is my final call to action. If you've loved this episode, I really hope that you hit the subscribe button and you really share this with somebody who needs a financial game plan. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a nephew, maybe it's a parent, right? But give them the tools to be able to think through critically and objectively and lovingly, to be able to figure out how to build a game plan. And if you're ready to level up, I really want you to head over to Do.Different.Better.com, or you can visit me on my YouTube channel for some free financial planning resources. Remember, setbacks are temporary, but financial freedom is forever. And you know what? I know that you got this. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Do Different Better Show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. I can't wait to see you next week, and when I show you how to do different better. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review. We love comments. If there's somebody you want me to interview, please let me know. If you've got a question you'd like me to answer or a topic you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'm happy to do that, and I can't wait to see you next time.